All right, grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and repentant alike. I am Chief Sophia of the AmaruKhan Band of Indians, and this video is going to be about one of our elders in the American Negro Native community that is very seldomly spoke of. Very few people will admit they know who he is. A lot of people, everybody uses his work. He is the modern father of esoteric knowledge. If you know Blavatsky, everything she knows she stole from him. So this is some knowledge that was dropped in my lap about 2.5 weeks ago, and I've just been investigating it, trying to usually before I bring information, especially as it relates to magic, because that's what we're talking about, magic, I like to verify that it's accurate, verify the accuracy. One of the ways that I verify accuracy is if I can make it make sense. Like some of the stuff that they were saying, a lot of the stuff is coded. So in order to make it make sense, you have to literally sit with it, and you have to see if you can decipher and decode what they were saying and what they meant, because it's often not the same thing. So the brother's name is Paschal, Beverly, Randolph. Bobby Hemmett spoke of him. I actually just saw a clip, and I'm no Bobby Hemmett person. I don't, follow a bunch of his stuff. But I just saw a video where he was talking about him. But everybody called him PBR. So PBR was born on October the 8th, 1825. That's the only fact I can remember. And his father was actually the very first Secretary of State of this country, and his mother was a native. They say she was an African princess. She could have been this, she could have been that. She was a native person to the land, okay? And so this was one of those mulattoes that the Haitian people killed because he was a mulatto. And so his mother died when he was very young, but from a young age, his mother would tell him stories, fairy tales, very much like what we're going into now, about how times were before, stuff had been passed down, so on and so forth. His father actually may have never even met him, because he was Paschal. PBR was born in New York, but his father was from Virginia. And so and I know lots of Randolph, so that's just another. Anyway, so his father may have not ever really seen him or even met him. We're not certain that is true, that he knew him. And so PBR grew up with his mom. She told him a lot of stories. Then when he was 5, his mother died, and he went into an orphanage. And at the age of 12, he becomes a seaman, and he begins he becomes a sailor, and he starts traveling. I mean, come on, son. What do you... I'm trying to let him over because I know he don't have a lot of space. I don't care about this guy. Let this man over. See how rude these people are? These truckers got to get over. They have to be safe. You can't. Let's go on with the story. So at the age of 12, PBR becomes a sailor. And so he begins to sail all around the world. And as he's sailing around the world, he's learning all kinds of languages and cultures. He's learning a lot of different things. And so around age 24, so now he sailed the ocean, the world for 12 years. He turns 24. He comes back to New York, because that's where he was born, in New York. He comes back to New York. He now he's a doctor. So when I read that part of the story, I was like, well, why would he need to be a doctor? What exactly does that have to do with anything? And when I read that article about the Haitian people, who did they say they killed? They killed everybody except doctors and priests. Everyone else they killed. So that's the reason why he hurried and came back, and all of a sudden he was a doctor. And so he was basically healing people using these different things that he had learned around the world, but also in conjunction with the stories that his mom told. So around this time, let's see, we're talking about 1825. So around 1850, there's something called mesmerism or spookism that started to really take off. And this is when people were basically channeling the dead and doing seances and stuff like that. That becomes really, really popular. And he, as a Negro or native person, indigenous person to the land, and a white, because he was a mulatto, he was able to do this channeling. And so he was channeling all the way up until one time I think his mom came through, and she yelled at him because she said to him, why would you be so open that anybody's energy can come through your mouth? What's wrong with you? I'm sorry. She got on this man. She was like, you need to stop this. So, and some other things she must have said. So he stopped channeling, and he started, basically like telling people, we don't need this spooky stuff. We can do this through scientific methods. And so he opens up, like I said, he's a doctor. He's healing people, doing this different stuff. So in this search for his knowledge, he starts his own lodge, which is the predecessor to the OTO lodge, which Crowley took over. I think at the end of this I'll talk about Crowley, because I've been meaning to make a few statements about him, but let's get through the story first. So he has this lodge. He's traveling all over the world. He's healing people. He's teaching people the scientific methods of doing these different type of healings, and he's developing this esoteric knowledge at the same time. Now this is this part of the story where you have enter that whore Blavatsky. And yes, I believe she is a whore, because she literally got into it with PBR because he wanted the knowledge to be for everybody. He wanted to make the knowledge free and give it to everyone. And Blavatsky wanted to keep it a secret. And so he was following her, trying to figure out what she had going on. Then he must have realized she was a fraud, and that's when their bitter rivalry started, because he told her to quit doing that, weird stuff she was doing. And of course, serpent worshippers never give up their serpent, and so she wouldn't. And so after that, she spent the rest of his life doing black magic to him, and he died basically from black magic. So at the age of 49. So, but before he dies, he has begun writing these different books, and so he opens up his own little publishing house. Actually, he had published a bunch of stuff he was in Boston by this time, and there was this great fire of Boston that literally burned down everything. And so when everything burned down, including his office, he fled to Ohio. And so he opens his practice back up. He, begins printing books and stuff like that again. And he's basically finally finds a woman, which is really important to his story. And he gives birth to a son named Osiris. And so after he after the woman gives birth, things are not going very well. Again, he's having heavy black magic done to him. And like I said, at the age of 49, he kills himself with a shotgun to the head. And so as soon as he dies, which I believe, let's see, 1874? Yeah, 1874, because he was born in 1825. 1874, he dies like in April or something like that. And later on that year, Blavatsky opens her Theosophical Institute. Now, mind you, keep in mind on this story, he has an office in Boston. The office in Boston burns down with everything that his whole life's work inside, allegedly. He himself is unable to personally secure any of the things that are lost. Then he goes to Ohio. He's still doing this work. He's still plotting and planning on giving it out for free, or do these little books or whatever he was planning on doing. But he kind of got caught up in the suffrage movement. It was a bunch of stuff going on. Again, but he had heavy black magic done to him. And then as soon as he died, they barely waited for him to be buried underground. They opened the Theosophical Society. And where they get all their knowledge from is, again, as when I was researching Blavatsky and reading her stuff, I said there's no way she wrote this, because she don't understand it. And I saw a little video on TikTok which basically explained it. The TikToker was talking about this alleged incident with the United Healthcare CEO and the alleged confession. And she said that guy didn't write this. She said somebody was trying to write like somebody who went to an Ivy League school. And so she said this is something that the police do. They often will write, different things in their language, trying to sound smart, when they're just covering up for the fact that they don't know what they're talking about. And like I have mentioned 1,000 times about Blavatsky and even what's his face, what is that man's name, Steiner, their work, their written work, especially Steiner, does not sound right. It don't sound right. It don't sound like it come from him. It sounds like it come from somewhere else. And so I could never really get into it because I didn't know where it came from, and I felt uncomfortable reading words somebody was saying belonged to someone else and knowing that they didn't. So when but I don't have a problem with Steiner, his speeches, because his speeches that he gave is spoken in plain English, which is probably something he did actually synthesize from the information he was given. Now, why did I say he was given the information from someone? He could have been given the information from PBR himself, because remember, PBR sailed the whole world. He was a seaman for 12 years. In those 12 years, he learned many languages. He learned a lot about a lot of cultures. His book that a lot of people have read, and none of them understand it. And I know because I tried to research certain parts of it to see what other people were saying, and they don't even address it because they don't even know what to do with the information. I can tell. So it's a book called Sexual Magic. Now, for those people who have already predetermined that they're never going to get married again, they're never going to be in love, they're never going to engage with a man or the opposite sex or whatever ever again, God said it was bad, it's a curse or whatever, you may as well go. Thank you for joining us so far. Hope you learned something. Go and research PBR for yourself. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Goodbye and good night, because now we're going to talk about the real part of what he was talking about. So the book is called Sexual Magic. Now, this is probably one of the craziest stories I have ever heard, and can nobody explain it. These people don't know what to do with it. I do believe even Bobby Hemmett probably himself didn't really know what to make of it. So let me explain to you this part. The book Sexual Magic was translated in 1987 from an original French version. Now, French, go with the Haitians, we already know they had knowledge, right? But the translator noted some really strange things in the translations. He said the person who wrote the book, the person they're claiming wrote the book, didn't write the book. Okay, it was PBR's book. But somebody else claimed that they wrote it from something or whatever. The person who wrote the book wrote it with English references, meaning it's things only Americans would say. But they wrote it in French. But the French don't talk like that. The French don't talk like that, the way that the book was written. And so the guy was like, I thought that this other person wrote the book, but it appears as if PBR himself wrote the book. You can find this book. I found it in about 5 different languages. He wrote this book in 5 languages. All of them perfectly translate to English. I actually was reading, the English translation of the book is the worst one. I was looking at a Portuguese translation because the English translation didn't say a particular phrase right. It kind of like, it didn't read well. And I was like, this is not what he was trying to say. The person either they purposely mistranslated it or they didn't understand what he was trying to say, because of course it was a Negro, a Native American to the land who wrote the book. So we talk and think in a certain way. And so the person did not translate it right. And I had, like I said, I had the Portuguese version, and I put the Portuguese version, through the things I could figure out what it said in Portuguese, translate to English, and it translated perfectly. So it's my belief that he wrote this is his most important book. He wrote it in 5 different languages, because you can find it in German, you can find it in Portuguese, you can find it in Spanish, you can find it in French. They didn't have an English version. There was no English version at all. It's like, what was the other language I saw? German, French, Portuguese, Spanish, maybe Italian. I don't remember, but at least I saw it in 4 languages. So before I found this book in the other languages, I started looking at books that he wrote in German. He has books that were written in German. Now, given what you know about Germany, quote unquote, what makes you think that they would write down the words of a Negro and preserve it in a book? They wouldn't do that. So I have mentioned previously that Bardon did not do that work, and he didn't. That was probably PBR's work that he put his 2 cents on, because some of the stuff makes sense and some of the stuff doesn't make sense. And that's why I had said I was going to buy his books, because like he clearly didn't write them. So if I can find them in German, I will probably buy them in German and then do my mumbo jumbo to translate it, because then I'll probably get a better understanding of what was being said, because the translators who are white trying to translate what a Negro was saying, it's not going to translate right. This is why these people can't make any of this stuff work, because they're trying to translate it in their white language, and he was a Negro. He would do it in our language. So you need one of us. We are the key. Like, you can't do this without us. Like, they tried everything to do this without us, but they literally, you can't do this without our people. We're the key. We're the absolute key. So if you've got a celestial reading by me, that's PBR's work. That's for sure his work. Probably Steiner too. So now when it gets Steiner's work that's in German, I'll probably be able to translate it just fine. These people, they don't speak Negro, so it don't make sense to them. It doesn't. So anyway, that's just neither here nor there right now. So I'm going to give you an example of what I did to verify that this man knew exactly what he was talking about, and it was exactly what he put in the book. Now, before I even talk about the sexual stuff, because honestly, I'm still processing some of the other stuff. Well, no, let me talk about the sexual stuff real quick. his belief is that love was the major manifester. You can manifest anything using love and basically sexual activities. And he talks very explicitly about what kind of sexual activities you need to create certain things. That's what his work is about. His work is about sex. And so in my researching of that, like just trying to figure out like, okay, so because I had read some of the Bardon has a book, Fraternis Saturnali, where he talks about these sexual, rituals that they do. And I was always like grossed out by the whole thing because like, ew, why would you do this? But now I get it. They didn't understand it. They just flat out didn't understand it. And Crowley, don't let me forget to talk about Crowley, was trying to tell them, hey, you guys are stupid. You're not getting what he said. And they just, threw what he was saying out the window because they wanted it to be a certain way, but it wasn't true. So, yes, PBR's belief was that you could use sex to manifest anything. And so he spends a lot of time talking about that and building up to being able to engage in this kind of stuff. So, that man was a player. That's a player from the Himalayas is probably what they called him. 100%. So in my research, I had a question. I looked up one of the terms. Okay, what he calls his whole sexual, first of all, his whole theory about everything, his motto for his organizations, his motto for life was try. Just try it and see what happens. That was his motto. And so he has a motto for the sexual stuff, and it's called Mahi Caligula. And I was like, Mahi Caligula? What the heck is he talking about? I looked up the word, and it means work hard. In like Samoan, I can't remember the exact, I think it starts with an M. Anyway, I looked it up. I wanted to see, well, if they had a sexual practice called work hard, what was their sexual culture like? There are 52 books plus called The Joy of Sex, all based off PBR's work. The whole sex industry, like writing books about sex, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, that whole thing is based off of PBR's work. The whole industry. You can't understand that industry without understanding PBR's work, which is why they don't get it. They're all wrong. Like, act like a man, think like a woman. What? PBR's work, literally stolen from probably his personal journals, to be honest. So in one of the books, it's called The Joy of Sex, and it's talking about culture. And I found it's not Samoan. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. But anyway, it talks about the culture of these particular people. So what I find out is, just to verify my stories and stuff that I've been telling, there's a culture of people. There's two real different cultures of people. There's cultures of people who put a dollar amount on their daughters, and there's a group of people who don't put a dollar amount on their daughters. A dollar amount being a dowry, and the dowry being basically the girl has to be pure before she engages with the man, the husband. And then there's one where it doesn't really matter so much if the girl is pure. Once she's engaged, because it's for love, she is, no one is allowed to engage with her at that point. So basically, it's a private chastity versus a public chastity. And there's many cultures that engage in public chastity. Public chastity is you have to be seen as a good girl in public because I need to get X, Y, and Z dollars for your virginity. They're selling their daughter's virginity. That's one group. And then there's the other group that's like, well, whatever you look like in public, once you find the one, once you're happy and you're in love, then Don't be talking to anybody else. Preserve your relationship. Do the right thing. All that kind of stuff. This is literally the two different groups of people. And basically all of the cultures of the world fall in these two groups. Either their daughter's virginity is for sale or it's not for sale. That's literally what it boils down to. And so that's just one whole thing. So the example. All right, so in his book, before you even get to the sex, because like I said, I've been reading this book for 2 weeks now. I haven't even got to the sex part. I'm still like, it's not even a long book. It's like less than 200 pages. But what he says in 200 pages is stuff like I have to go and research everything because I've never heard any of this stuff put like this before. So the example that he gives, so before you even engage with the woman or the man, whoever, right? There's steps that have to be taken. There's preparations. And so he spends the middle part of the book discussing these preparations. One of the main preparations is you have to know your scent. Now, there is a scent that is associated with your specific birth chart, which to me is like crazy. It's not like, oh, the days of the week. No. It's literally your sun, your moon, your all the stuff. There's a scent that's associated with that. Even moreover, there's color. There's a color associated with your birth chart, your specific personalized birth chart. There's a color. And so before you even make the scent, you would have the color made, and then once you make the color, you would put the color, pair the color with the scent. And then once you have the scent, you will pair it with music, because he gives you the instructions on how to create a musical passage based on your specific birth chart, your date of birth. And so imagine my surprise that a lot of the stuff we have been talking about all the way back from 2022 is showing up in this work. I'm flabbergasted. So I know that all of these people took their stuff from him. Like, there's no doubt about it. They all stole everything that they know from this man. And there's really no other way to explain it besides that, except to say that they stole it. So, let me go around. So, that being said, if they stole all the information, they stole all the knowledge, they did whatever they're going to do with it, blah, 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 okay? What does that mean? What does my example look like? So, he talks about how to break down the birth chart into, parts, okay? And not to go into too much detail, because you can see it in the book. But he breaks it down into parts. Each whatever has a whatever and whatever. It's just, I need to open this door because it's hot. So what I did was take his formula and I tried to apply it, and it took me over a week because I just could not wrap my mind around this formula. It is one of the most complicated, and it's only like a few steps, but it's you have to really, really wrap your mind around what he means, and you have to know astrology. There's no way to do this without knowing astrology. So I took his formula and I was able to create a color for my birth chart. And I was surprised because the color is actually the exact opposite of who I am on the outside. It's the exact opposite. It's a color that I hardly ever use. If I was to say my favorite color, that would never be it. I don't surround myself with that color, and I don't wear that color. And so I was surprised at how off my perception of myself was. And I have to really like take a step back and say, wow, I'm really not living how I'm supposed to be living. I'm really not. And so I have to reevaluate everything, because literally the color has nothing to do with a color that I like. And so I'm going to have to immerse myself into this color to, however, even though it's not a color I use or anything like that, I resonated with the color. I felt it deeply. And so the fact that I could take a formula that's over 18, 19, 20, almost 200 years old, at least 150 years old, almost as old as this country. I was able to take that formula that he put in the book and break it down into an actual color, is mind-boggling. It's impossible. It's impossible. And so that leads me to believe that this man, he knows what he's talking about. But think about what you can do with that. If you know, once the child is born, you grab the birth chart, you can start dressing the child in that color. You can paint that color in the child's room. You can make a blanket with that child, with the child's colors. You can give them, prayer beads, necklaces, whatever, with the child's color on it. You can have the tone that soothes the child and sing that tone to that child when the child is fussy, colic. You can, if you know the beat of that tone, you can boop, 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 beat that tone on the baby while you're tapping them so they can be comfortable. You can comfort that child in their celestial tone. That is insane. You can literally surround that child in that color. And to me, that is, I don't know what I don't know what I can do with that information. That's completely amazing to me. I feel like already we have the capacity of being of affecting great changes on this planet just by knowing that. Like, if I went and got the color for the United States, I could get into alignment with them for whatever purposes and really affect the way that things operate. So I think it's really, really great information. I feel like a lot of people are, of course, going to be pissed off, mad, blah, 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 whatever. Say the drama for your mama. I don't care. I truly don't. What I want to do and what I want to see is people advance. And I want PBR's work to be free. Just like, again, he tried to share it freely, and that whore killed him for trying to share the information freely. So I guess this time around, they're trying to make sure the information can be shared freely without these whores, these prostitutes who put a dollar amount on everything, try to basically fleece the flock even further and manipulate people. This is going to be manipulation free, okay? And so this is just a part one, an introduction to PBR. He does go very, like I said, very, very descriptively into sex. And so if you guys don't like that kind of content, anything that I post about PBR, you should just skip, because all of this is about sex. Like, all of it. There's no thing that this is literally about sex. And if that bothers you, then this content is not going to be good for you, because that's what the content is about. It's about producing, creating an environment where high frequency children can emerge. And that's the point of sex, to create children. Again, the tree by its fruit. And if the fruit of the tree is, if they've been using this information to force us to create rotten fruit from the tree, these kids are out of control. What is going to happen when we start using this information to create good fruit? That's really what we're looking for. We're looking to create good fruit. And so some people will like it, Some people won't like it. I'm still of childbearing age, so I find this stuff to be very interesting to me. If you are not of childbearing age because you're quote unquote too old, then this is good information to help your children and your grandchildren. If you're not of childbearing age because you're too quote unquote young, meaning you haven't started yet, this information is going to help you bring in the highest vibrational child that you can. We need these ascended masters and these helpers here. 1 or 2 people here and there is just not enough. We need a whole army of people who can do this type of stuff, who are these Siddhis, who have this ancient knowledge. And the only way we're going to do that is if we literally put our pig boy and girl pants on or off and get to work. There's no other way to do it. We have to get to work. Everybody, it's all hands on deck. This is a critical mission for humanity, is to bring in these high frequency children, even higher frequency than the ones that came in with COVID. We need higher frequency children. So this is my introduction to PBR. Definitely one of our patrons of the tribe, one of my personal spirit team members, who I love and appreciate so much for all the very, very detailed knowledge that he's brought to me so far. I get it now. For a long time, I was like, I don't even understand why I have to have all of this knowledge. I didn't get it. And now I'm like, oh, well, I get it now. I had to have this knowledge. It was required, because when his name came up, if I didn't have the knowledge, I would have just skipped right over it. I didn't even find, like I said, somebody gave me the information. I didn't even find it myself. So, all right. Shalom, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.